What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down, what is moving it today, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid's up 3.53%, 12.15 the high, 11.31 the low. So it is continuing its good momentum from yesterday. Of course, the broader market is very optimistic right now, largely because of what came from Greenland. So at the end of the day, the states kind of got what they wanted. EU is happy. Everyone's happy, market's happy, so that's kind of why we're having a nice push higher. Plus, we did have some fairly good data. So today was going to be the big day for data. GDP, initial jobless claims, and PCE. So GDP came in 4.4, forecast of 4.3, so generally good for that. Initial jobless claims came in at 200 versus 195, so not the greatest, but still the market's not really moving too much because of that. And then PCE did come in a little bit hotter, although this data is from October and November, so the market's not really paying too much attention to that. So as far as right now, the market is moving based on positive data. So it's not that inverse crap or whatever else. So very interesting kind of stuff. Associated to Lucid, there was showing this as news, even though I think it's just because it came from PR Newswire. That's why it's showing up as Lucid News, but it's just including their ticker, and it's kind of a negative because it does show that this trader rolls out short leveraged ETFs on APLD, IREN, Lucid, and NBIS. So ultimately, if you want to short Lucid, you can do a 2x short. So very interesting timing, mind you. So Lucid gained some pretty good momentum yesterday, continuing on today, and you have instantly a 2x short ETF created. So definitely some signs of manipulation going on there, but it is what it is, because right now shorts are returning about 126,000 shares, but still 36.69% of the free float is being shorted. So I think Lucid investors are kind of used to this by now, but 47.3 or 8 million shares is being shorted. So definitely a lot of stuff going on. Cost to borrow dropped a little bit from yesterday, still fairly high though, so 245.29%. So that's an annual rate, not a daily rate on a side note. Only thing that really came out was associated to this, so Claudio, and again, I've brought up how he is very much bearish on Lucid, so he always tries to spin the narrative as negative. So even if you kind of read through this, there's a lot of like subtle hints of negativity, but ultimately in here it shows that he has been kind of speaking with Cantor Fitzgerald, and Cantor Fitzgerald has been speaking to the PIF, and the PIF remains optimistic and willing to back Lucid. I know that's been one of those kind of hot topics, a lot of drama over the last week, a lot of which comes from Mark and I guess just Bloomberg misinterpreting what he was trying to say. But this last week we held direct conversations with the Public Investment Fund regarding their partnership with Lucid. Analyst Andre Shepard wrote in a note obtained by EV, following our conversations, we come away more encouraged, and we believe that the PIF remains committed to Lucid over the long term. So generally, I think anyone kind of knew that. As I've signaled though, regardless of how Lucid moves, I think the PIF has positioned themselves in a win-win type of scenario. So if it goes down, they get more stock. If it goes higher, then their current stock appreciates. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. In here, it does signal that Andre Shepard did kind of reiterate their previous rating, although I don't see that being officially posted on any tip ranks or anything like that. So it's one of those unofficial ratings, as I've brought up in the past. But aside from that, looking at the options, we're seeing a lot of volume getting in, 1.9 million in calls, 3.4 in puts, and then 38% of all the options being done are neutral in nature. And as I've kind of mentioned in the past, the reason why it is neutral is because big money eats up both the bid and the ask. And so a lot of platforms such as Unusual Whales and so forth, they kind of look at where the trade was more oriented, whether that be on the bid side or the ask, to determine whether it's bullish or bearish. So big money definitely is playing Lucid options, and you can kind of tell that as well based on just the dollar value. From a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around 12 to 12.50. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 11. So kind of have that back and forth. So frequency is a little bit more oriented towards down, but still, you see a lot of optimism. These are some of the transactions occurring on the secondary market. A little bit different than yesterday. So yesterday you did have a lot of institutions actually buying. Today, the opposite is kind of occurring. So you have 3 transactions, one for 119, 109, and then 102. Those are all buys. Everything else is a sell. So of course, algorithmic trading is really pushing the broader market higher today. And of course, Lucid as well. So algorithmic trading is kind of the primary source of the volume. Looking at the dark pool, these are all the transactions occurring today. Given the fact that shorts aren't really doing too much, it is fair to assume that hedge funds are kind of getting involved as well. It's definitely good to see. So I don't know if potentially as well, if this actual ETF does need to purchase Lucid as well, just more of a kind of secondary storage just in case they get somehow margin called or whatever else. But this is a very interesting ETF because the cost to borrow has jumped up quite considerably, so I'm sure the fees associated to this ETF are just crazy. So I don't know if anyone would be dumb enough to really do this in general. And plus, I think given the circumstances, whoever is shorting Lucid, they've been around the block. They've kind of know the stuff. They know how to really manipulate it. But for a retail investor, given the circumstances right now and what came out associated to 𝗪𝗡 yesterday, which was huge news, I wouldn't really think about shorting Lucid at all because there's definitely a lot more upside than down. Lucid's, from a PS standpoint, is trading at a pretty deep discount. But aside from that, with it right now at 1184, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. So 1322 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. If it can hold some key levels, which I'll go over in a second, then potentially 13 could be on the table. But for today, it needs to hold that 1176. If not, you will be seeing some consolidation. And hopefully we do have Intel's earnings after hours today. So hopefully that comes in positive and we can kind of see a nice push higher. But aside from all that, quickly popping back over here on the actual chart itself, it did successfully get over that 10-day moving average. And typically you do need 2 consecutive days to really signal a trend. And this hasn't actually happened since pretty much November. So the next big thing for Lucid, which could be tested tomorrow, is going to be that 50-day moving average sitting at 1234. And if it is able to get above that, then this is where you can see things move very positive. And I kind of looked back. So Lucid occasionally has these kind of pushes higher and blah, blah, blah. A lot of which is just moved through algorithmic trading. Very rarely does Lucid actually put out news that justifies a push higher. And yesterday's news was on point. And even the day prior, I did a kind of venting type of video about how they really need to speed up 𝗪𝗡 at all cost. And turns out the following day, they pretty much did that. So at the same time, for those of you, again, that kind of watch my weekend videos where I go over some expectations, I did signal 950 was going to be kind of the low where we would have a nice bounce. And lo and behold, that is exactly to a T where it did go. So this is why sometimes it's better just to follow the technicals, what the data points are actually saying. Don't get so emotionally involved. I think way too many people, retail investors, get just emotionally involved, and why probably Mark in the past said that he wants to pivot away from retail investors and stick to more institutional investors, which was more of a slap in the face, but nonetheless, yeah. So in my opinion, key level to watch for in the next couple of trading days is going to be that 50. And if so, then you could see some very nice price action. Looking at the market position, you do see a couple gaps. So in theory, if Lucid can actually get above that, let's say 1205, then this is where you could easily see a test of that 50 and potentially even at 1270 in the short term. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Are you buying? Are you selling? Are you kind of shorting it, or are you thinking about that new ETF? What's your general thoughts on Lucid? One final thing, if you're looking for some solid on-point buy signals, pop over to my Patreon. I put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades, worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.